Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the MicFlayers podcast, coming to you from. Oh, damn it. Well, Martin, it's like my boy Marshall would always say: you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow, because opportunity comes once in a lifetime. I'm your host, Conor Martin, and joining me, as always, is my co-host Martin O'Dwyer.
Hey, Connor.
You like how I called him Marshall because we're on a first name basis? Like he'd ever even acknowledge my existence.
I do, yeah. You and Marshall, good pals, swapping comic books all the time.
Yeah.
He's actually big into comic books.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's cool.
He's been in
I like hearing that like celebrities are humans, if that makes sense. You know, like they have hobbies other than the thing they are famous for.
He was
Like if I found out tomorrow that, I don't know, Elvis collected postcards or baseball cards or something like that, I'd be like, that's really cool to hear about Elvis because we know him as a singer and a performer, but I like hearing that he has this other side, this other interest or whatever.
Fun fact, Elvis has a black belt in the same style of karate I learned when I was a kid.
See, that shit's really cool. I already cursed, damn it.
He's definitely not legit though. I'm just gonna say his is definitely not legit.
Oh yeah, it's like an honorary black belt.
It's like oh, you're really famous, and it would probably look really good for our style to be known as the style that Elvis Presley practices. But yeah,
is yours a form of
be.
Korean karate?
It is. It was called Tangsudo.
Yeah,
Which is like it's very very similar to like Shotokan karate. So for like reference, the style of karate that like Ryu and Ken do in Street Fighter.
Out of curiosity.
But like it's like a Koreanized version. So it's like if you take like Taekwondo and Shotokan and slam them together.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna make a joke about Elvis being like getting his black belt in that, and then it's just like, oh, we need you to break this piece of wood with your head, and it's like balsa wood, so it just falls apart.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I'm good though, man. I'm good. It's been an interesting week.
How so?
Oh, just in general, just D&D stuff. Catching up on Critical Role, which has been a lot of fun. Actually, I'm still behind. I haven't seen as of recording this week's episode yet, or only a little bit of it, I think. And I've also just been playing a ton of Elden Ring.
I'm far behind on Critical Role. I think I got at least 3 or 4 episodes to catch up on, which is quite bad. But I've just been distracted by I'm watching way too many reaction videos on YouTube, and it's eating up all my time. And then on top of that, I am playing Horizon like some sort of crack fiend, and I'm loving it so much. The world looks gorgeous. I was in like there's an area of it where you're in like Northern California in like a redwood forest, and I was just running through that, and I literally just stopped. And it just slowly panned the camera, and I'm like, this is really nice to look at. If there was no machines and no like fighting, I'd still have a great time just strolling around this world because it looks amazing, and all the settlements look really cool. I did have a moment a while ago when I was outside cutting the grass, and I dropped a bolt off of something onto the ground. And I had a moment where I was like, I'm playing too much Horizon, because when the bolt fell on the ground, my immediate thought was not where did it go, but I almost went to reach for my focus to be like, no, can I highlight where that bolt just went?
Oh man, that's when you know you've been in it too long.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten that before though? Because I know when I first got Tara into Overwatch, she was out in the hospital visiting someone, and she told me when she came back, she was like, I'm playing too much Overwatch because I turned the corner in the hospital corridor and like a nurse was coming towards me, and Tara immediately got defensive, like, is that one of my team?
I haven't had one of those, but because I've played League for like 10 years, my default resting position of my hands on the keyboard is my 4 fingers on QWER, which are the 4 keys for your 4 abilities in League. And it's like my 4 fingers will be there, and then my thumb will be like near spacebar or one of the other ones that I use for the game. I have just been programmed now. That's just how I rest at the computer, is I'm playing League of Legends.
I have a resting position like that, but it's WASD, but that's a bit more common. Like it was a QWER is way more specific to League. Yeah.
It's your 4 abilities, because you move with the mouse.
Why is it QWER and not 1 2 3 4 on there right there?
I don't know.
Is it there other keys like shift and stuff that you use as well?
So like QWR, your four abilities, like you can tap spacebar to get the camera to hold in yourself if you're using unlock camera. D and F then are two other spell keys, so it's probably because QWR and D and F
So
are
yeah, you
really
can have
close to
those
each other.
close by.
And
Yeah.
then 1, 2, 3, and 4 are your items. That's why it's not the number. Sorry, I just remembered.
Okay,
It's
fair enough.
because I have because you've six inventory slots. Good. I'll just make sure I didn't accidentally hit spacebar when I was saying that and pause the recording. But you've six inventory slots, so you can have active items that have activatable abilities in those slots. So you can
Right.
go like
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 is actually your. We're getting way too into the league thing here. But yeah, yeah. No, I have been like that a little bit. I've been corrupted by my gaming past. Um. Oh,
Haven't
actually,
we all?
I think what was it?
I played the absolute hell out of Star Wars Republic Commando as a kid, which was an amazing game. Actually, no, that actually all the Star Wars games. If you play any of the Knights of the Old Republic games, you can run around using WASD as well. Even though your arrow is like 90% of what you do, you still move your character by with WASD.
Oh, I actually did think of a story. I have actually been like it's League again, but I was asleep and my housemate came in to wake me up, and I was dreaming about being in a game of League, and
Right.
because my housemate, because we were all big massive nerds and cared about like being at spots to game properly, we would Skype each other from our room because there were like four of us living in a house. We all played League together, so
Right.
we would Skype each other from our rooms to play League together rather than just being in a room together and playing the game.
Yeah.
And so like I was having a dream that we were all playing a game. We were on a Skype call, and then my housemate Dan came in to wake me up for something. I think that, like someone was coming over, someone was looking for me, and like he was like shaking me to try and wake me up, and I was like, "No, man, Dan, we can't afford to lose any more dragons." And that has been brought up every time I see him now. Because he lives in the Netherlands, so whenever he comes home, it'll usually be like we'll be out in the night drinking, and then like halfway through we both had a few pints. He'd be like, he's like, Martin, can we afford to lose any more dragons now? And I'm like, just can you stop? It's been like 10 years. But yes, that is it. That is the time when I've been fired to. I've had a gamer moment. I think that's what it's called.
Dan was actually in our first D and D, and he joined a bit
Was.
later, but he was in our first D&D campaign where he was playing a rogue named
Death Row,
Death something.
Death Row
Death Row.
Salaval was his name.
You're the last name and everything. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he a half elf or some sort of elf? I thought.
I think he was an elf rogue. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was Death Row Salaval. Attila didn't have a second name. Velas Cairholm. It was like Holyn. Then there was Vasquine Ironwood, Luglavada. Who else? What was Nicole's character's name again? Veltari.
Veltari.
I
I don't think she had a last name either.
think that was I think that's everybody, isn't it?
Uh,
I think that was everybody.
yeah, more or less. It's honestly it's so long, and I've blocked a lot of that out of my memory for sanity reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
So,
a brief tour of the recesses of my brain there, folks. Sorry.
Yeah, the dark recesses. Martin, today we're going to be talking about something called one-shots.
Hey.
Would you like to explain to our audience what one-shots are?
You're turning it back around on me from last week.
Yeah.
Yes, one shots are generally, if you're being strict to the definition of one shot, it is a single session adventure where the story starts. It's a full beginning, middle, and end of a story, all encapsulated in the one session. But as quite often happens with me when I run one shots, they can sometimes stretch to 2 and 3 shots.
It does happen. It's happened to me as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, though. I mean, like, as long as everyone is like, if people come for a one shot and it kind of spills over a little bit, and you're like, hey, we might need to play again next week just for a couple hours and wrap up the final fight and a little bit extra or whatever. The only time I could see that really being a problem is if like you had a player who was maybe had not played before, came to the one shot to learn how to play, and like if they had absolutely no interest whatsoever in ever continuing this because it's just not their cup of tea.
Yeah.
In that case, that's the only time I could see that being a problem. I think most people though, in anytime I've seen one shot spill over into a follow up week or something like that, most people are perfectly fine to come back and wrap up the story because people want a conclusion. People want a nice like you said, they want a beginning, they want a bookend on it, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of time, at least in my experience anyway, a lot of the time it's people who either don't play D&D regularly or have never played D&D before, and they're like just really getting into the fun of it for the first time, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, can we play more? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So do you would say how or why I should say would you ever run a one shot? What are the reasons you would run a one shot for? Other than the fact that it's just fun and it's nice to play D&D.
Sometimes it's really nice to give your DM a break. Like yourself, you like particularly when you weren't playing in any other sessions. It was always nice when we were like if we had maybe like someone was missing for a week and we couldn't do our regular campaign. And rather than missing a week of playing D&D, we were like, hey, one of us was like, hey, I'll run a one-shot if you want. And then you got a chance to play, which is always fun because it's always fun to see the DM as a player when you've just seen them as a DM for most of the time. Although I suppose that doesn't really count for me because I played like 8 levels of a D&D campaign with you.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's if you're the forever DM, it's nice, like you said, to take a break. And that works really well when you have when, like you said, if there's someone out that can't make it one week or something, but people go, oh, I'd really still like to play. I don't want to miss a week or whatever. Then maybe we could play this other one-off game, so we can still get the enjoyment of playing D&D, but not necessarily have to progress the story when the person who's missing might miss out on that. That's definitely a good one. I remember a few years ago when I was in my first apartment. It was my birthday, and like I was like, okay, look, my birthday. Here's what I want to do. I think Tara was away. I think she was on holiday somewhere.
Yes, I remember this now. Yeah.
And I was like, I want the rest of us to get together. I think the other 4 of us got together. And I'm like, okay, I just want to get together in the middle of the day and play D&D until like 2 a.m. And we did. We played for like 10 or 11 hours I think that day, and I think we ran 2 or 3 different one shots. No, I think we ran 2. I can't remember. We ran a couple of different one shots.
Yeah, I think it was at least 2.
Yeah, because I remember you ran one for definite because that was the one where you were doing the color. What books are the color magic things from?
Oh, the Lightbringer series books. Yeah.
The Lightbringer stuff. Yeah. So you had a session like that. Actually, Tara was there for that one. Now I think about it, because she played the barbarian, in that one.
That was a different one.
Was it?
That was like a much earlier one I ran. That was a much earlier one I ran. I just Tara played in that one and didn't play in any other one shots I ran until the most recent one I ran there.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. But yeah, no, I remember that. I remember like I got to play. You ran one and Dan ran one as well.
Yes.
Because I played I played a life cleric named Mercer, who was my gender bend on Mercy from Overwatch, and also just kind of coincidentally named Mercer, like Matt Mercer. And yeah, I just played him, and I was a full on cleric at a party and stuff like that. And he had us like stranded on an island, and there was like I think we fought some giants, and there was a bunch of like It was like a kooky professor that was meant to be dead, but we found him in a cave or something like that.
Yeah, he was basically the kid from Jumanji who got trapped in Jumanji.
Yeah, actually, yeah, more or less. He had been. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, he had been there since he was like a teenager.
Yeah.
And his parents' ship washed up on there, and they all died, and he had just been gone native and grown up in the wilds of the island. Yeah. So there was that one, and you ran. Was that the one? Was the one you ran on that same day? The one with the color changing dragon?
Yes, I think that might have been. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool mechanic where Martin had us fight a dragon, and I think at the top of each round, almost like a layer action, you would roll a dice to determine what color it would be for the next round. It was meant to be like again, like it was in the theme of all that light related magic, where the spectrum of light would change intermittently. It just worked out very badly for me because I do lightning down. I was playing Aratok, who is a Triton Storm Herald barbarian, and you gave me a trident that does cold damage, and also I had a lightning ability. And the 2 or 3 times you rolled over the 3 rounds we fought him, he rolled like cold, lightning, cold. So I was doing like half damage to him constantly.
I felt so sorry for you, man. Oh, that was such bad. Like, and I was even doing the thing where like if I rolled the same type 2 times in a row, I would roll again because that's boring. And it still went cold, lightning cold. You still killed it though. Well done, like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I played Aratok again in like a short campaign.
I like Aratok. He's a good character.
He's the weirdest combination of things because he's Thor mixed with Aquaman, and then he's got the personality of Korra from Legend of Korra. But he's fun to play. He's literally a fish out of water. Um, but he's fun to play because I can be a little bit clueless with him, but he's also just a little bit charismatic and he's honorable. And Barbarians is just fun. He's where I found my love for Barbarians. I never
Yeah.
got it before. I thought it'd be boring just hitting things and getting hit. But he's where I discovered my love for Barbarians when I was on top of a wall and there was like 20 goblins in front of me. And like, because they're all doing half damage, I'm like, yeah, keep hitting me. I do not care. They would just hit me and I was just going like 1, 2, lightning blast, 1, 2, lightning blast.
Sick.
And it was unreal.
Storm
But yeah,
Heralds are very cool. One
they
actually
are. And
shows up in Critical Role in the last few sessions.
oh, really? Okay. I have not, like you said, I'm a bit behind.
Not a
on
PC,
Critical Role.
NPC. So, but he shows up, and like as soon it was the thing where like someone was fighting someone, and it was like, oh, he headbutts you, and you take a D6 fire damage. I was like, oh, it's a Storm Herald. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's a
I've
Desert
always thought-
Storm Herald too.
Yeah, I've always actually wanted to pick a Desert Storm Herald barbarian, but then play it as a turtle and make it so that when they rage and the fire comes out, their shell cracks and like red light or like it almost looks like magmas underneath their shell, or like that maybe little volcanoes that are shooting smoke up, like form on their back. Is it Tor? What's that Pokemon? It's a Pokemon that's like that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. I was gonna say
uh,
like Magmar, but that's not a turtle. Um,
I think it's a Gen 3 Pokemon, and I can't
yeah,
remember his name.
it's
Uh,
Have you ever seen the game of Sora's Wrath?
Tor Cole is his name.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I want to do something like that where he's just got like a little volcano on his back and he's
Yeah.
just raging through people. Be unreal.
But I suppose that's you're kind of segueing into one of the other main reasons people like to play one shots as well. I think there.
Which is testing out character builds.
Yes. Particularly if you're a DM, not even a forever DM, just a DM. You like I just make characters for fun sometimes. Like if a new
Oh yeah.
class comes out and I'm like, oh, this would be fun. Like I like, hang on, how many do I have? Right. I think I have.
I'll bring up my list here as well. We can look at
I've
a couple ideas we have.
Oh, actually, hang on. I'll use my desktop instead of my phone because then I won't have to be messing around with stuff. Please.
I have a Hobgoblin evocation wizard. Actually, when you talked to, I made him up on the podcast. So I'm talking about.
Oh
He was
yeah.
Grunt. I was gonna
Yes.
play him in a one shot with Gavin, but it kind of fell through. I also have a Tabaxi College of Swords bard who's a sailor. Um, I thought it'd be funny because he'd like sing sea shanties, but also like he's just really good with two swords and
Yeah.
stuff. Be kind of cool. Um,
Nice.
but I have an Aarakocra artillerist artificer who's basically just a living fighter jet. Um, I have what was this one? Oh, I have a human way of the open palm monk with there was a blind background that Gavin found online. I think I kind of wanted to play. I basically wanted to play Chert Imwe from Rogue One.
Cool. Cool.
And then I have one more, and she is a dwarf cleric, and artificer armorer combination. And I wanted to do it like she had this whole. This is really built around Gavin's kind of homebrew setting where it's kind of a little bit diesel punk. But there's like a new god in the pantheon who's a god of machines, and she's kind of caught between her old dwarven ways of worshipping the forge and the craft and all that, and there's this new god who's like machinery, and she's like, oh, but I kind of like machinery as well, and I don't really see there being too much of a difference between a god of finely crafted things and a god of machines and mechanics. It seemed like they would complement each other. So she's kind of in this kind of struggle between do I stick with a faith my people know and my parents want me to be with, or do I try to strike out on my own and discover what this new god can mean for me as a person and stuff?
That's very cool.
Which I think was, yeah, so it's a fun one, and I've never played a super religious character either, so I think that could be very interesting.
Cool. I've got a Dragonborn Soul Knife, a Fallen Asmar Death Cleric, a Levistus.
Oh yes, your death cleric that's also a necrotic paladin.
Come on. No. I've a Levistus Tiefling Shadow Sorcerer. I've a Dampier Gunslinger, which is pretty cool, and Leon.
What's a Levistus tiefling? What bonuses do they get?
I need to double check because it's been a while since I made that.
Okay.
I also have, because it just felt appropriate, a Leonin Paladin, Oath of the Watchers.
Yeah, Leonin are really, really cool. Just like I like how their whole yeah, as far as I know, like if you look at their information for Theros, they're like basically like they're all none of them have religions. They're all like atheistic.
Yeah, they no, they're not atheists in that they don't believe the gods are real. They believe the gods are real. They don't believe they are
Yes.
worthy of worship because they abandoned
Yeah.
them in their time of need. Um, so the Levistus tiefling, you get a thing called Legacy of Stygia. So you know the
Right.
Ray of Frost cantrip at third level. You can cast you can cast Armor of Agathis second level once per long rest. At fifth level, you can cast Darkness once per long rest. Charisma is your spell casting ability. Um,
And you paired that with Shadow Sorcerer, did you?
yeah, Shadow Sorcerer and what was it? Oh yeah, it's just a Shadow Sorcerer. Yeah.
Right. And what was the last one you said then?
Oh, the last one I said then was I have a Dampier Gunslinger.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it was, I think I was trying to make like a blade, but with guns.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I like that though. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. No, there
Uh,
that one would be particularly fun. I think with the vampiric bite as well.
yeah.
I made a for a campaign that got very quickly aborted. I made a feral tiefling gunslinger once, so I would have wings at level 1.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just I would fly straight up in the air, so I'd
And
have
just shoot down.
shoot down with the advantage because you're shooting
Yeah.
from an elevated position, so just like bang 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 from down.
Is that actually a rule? I remember like very early in our first campaign, I think that was said to me that that was a rule, but I don't think being elevated actually is advantage in standard rules of 5e.
Yeah, I don't think it was either, but I think that was something that that group kind of did. And
Yeah.
I remember it very quickly changed after the DM got real tired of me critting people with headshots. Like I remember it like specifically became a thing where it was like you can't be 100 feet up in the air and shooting people on the ground because you've only 60 feet of visual range. And I was like, okay, grand, I'll fly 60 feet in the air and I'll shoot that guy in the head then.
Yeah. And then he changed the rules again.
No, the campaign ended fairly shortly after that. I like that
Oh,
character
okay.
though. He was like a tiefling gunslinger that dressed like an old west priest and carried around a Bible, or like
I'm
carried around a big holy book, and the inside of it was hollowed out to have it with a big like Bowie knife inside it, and I think it was like he had two guns that were called, I think it might have been like Judgment and Damnation, and then the knife was called Mercy.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Was I'm picturing
edgy boy.
well, I mean, let's be honest, pretty much every tiefling ever
Yeah.
that's made is some sort of edgy character. Tiefling wizard, edgy wizard. Tiefling paladin, edgy paladin.
I was gonna say Mollymock wasn't really edgy, but then I remember his whole kit revolves around cutting himself. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
About as edgy as you can possibly get. There was I was going to say something there a second ago, and I'm after blanking on it now.
We were saying that the reason for running one shots, testing out new characters.
No, I mean that's the main point to get back to, but there was something else I want to talk about. Look, if it comes back to me, it comes back to me. Oh, God, brain. But yeah, so that's one reason. Yeah, so definitely one reason is to test out new characters. I think from a DM perspective, it can be fun to test monsters or homebrew classes as well. Maybe if you were like writing up a homebrew thing or something like that. Might be good to run a one shot and be like, hey, would you run this one? Like I could come to you and be like, hey, I got the subclass idea for whatever paladin. Could you try out this paladin for me and see how it feels mechanically? You know?
I remember you had an
Um,
idea for a Shadow of Mordor style class at one point as well.
yeah, that's basically. Is that a kind of ranger though?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
he's a ranger like.
Yeah, I mean, he's called a ranger, but like, you know, like okay, so whenever anyone wants to make Aragorn in D&D, Aragorn's a fighter. He's not a ranger in D&D. He's a ranger in
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings, not
yeah,
in D&D.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, yeah, I had an idea for a fighter
I think it was a
homebrew
fighter hub.
before,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was like
and it was
Grave
meant to be.
Walker, I think.
I think I called it Grave Walker, which is what they refer to Talion as
Yeah.
in that game. But I never actually fleshed it out fully. I had a few ideas for ways you could. Do you know what? I think actually I had ideas for him, and then the Echo Knight came out. And did a lot of the stuff that
Yeah.
I had ideas for the class anyway, just in a slightly different way.
Echo Knight is
And
very
I'm
cool.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I saw someone did some fan art online once of an Echo Knight character they made, but their Echo wasn't an echo of them. It was like the spirit of their brother that had died.
Ooh,
So
like the
she was
twin.
like playing
Oh,
that
okay, cool.
character,
That's
and
really
then
cool.
when she summoned the spirit, it was the spirit of her brother who would appear as the Echo, which I thought
That's
was quite cool.
that's very cool. I really like that.
Yeah.
That's sort of
There's
like
really nothing stopping you
yeah,
from taking an Echo Knight and just saying, yeah, it's not an echo from another timeline or whatever. It's just a spirit of a dead thing, you know,
yeah,
and just pretending that it's more ghostly rather than
yeah.
multiversal, if that makes sense.
You don't have to like completely stick to the lore of how your subclass works. You can just totally just
Yeah,
reflavor that and use the mechanics. It's really fun to do that
absolutely.
too.
Replay brain is one of the strongest tools I think we have in 5e or in any kind of tabletop game really. Just if it as long as it functions the same mechanically, it doesn't matter what it looks like or what
Yeah.
color this spell is or your armor. Just say it is that thing, you know.
The three most
Uh,
powerful tools in the DM's toolkit: reflavoring, falling rocks, heart attacks.
so that's one idea is testing things out, whether it be players getting to play a new class
Hmm.
or like maybe you've never played a paladin before, so you're like, I'd really like to try out a paladin, but I don't know if it's for me. Let's run a one shot and you can get a feel for a paladin and stuff like that. Could be a good idea actually leading up to a campaign. If like people are like, hey, we're going to start a new campaign soon, and maybe like of the four players there, two or three of them have a couple of different characters they'd like to try. Let's run two one shots. You can get whatever character feels good,
Yeah.
and then you can choose that one then, and we'll go ahead with that character. And then you can end up with, it might be all one group that went on one shot, or it could be a mix of the two groups
Yeah.
because people decide they like to prefer different characters they built.
Yeah, totally. I think that's actually a really good idea. Like I think it is definitely a good idea to like have a very solid idea of what you want. I said idea so many times there, of what you want heading into a campaign. And I think playing a one shot where like you get the chance to like I do this anyway whenever we play one shots. I play a character so I have an idea either for like a backup character or like just something cool I want to try. Like that I do that a bunch. But
Yeah, same.
it's like yeah that's one of the big fun parts of it. Yeah, I'm trying to think now. I don't think I think the closest thing I got to testing out Lug before. Well, actually, no, I played a campaign with Lug before. But in terms of like
You played
barbarian,
my primarily fighter though.
yeah, oh yeah, it was 7 levels of fighter with 3 of barbarian, and I can tell you when I hit the third barbarian level, I felt invincible. And there's nothing was taking me down. But yeah, it's yeah, I think like the closest I got to testing him was I think I played a Storm Herald barbarian when that came out in one of your one shots. I played like a Dragonborn Storm Herald because I was like, let's just stack all the resistances. Uh,
Yeah.
and that was really fun. But
Well, now
yeah,
you can do that because you can play one of the gem dragons, get resistance to psychic, and then
yeah,
take a totem barbarian of the bear and just have resistance to everything.
literally everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Totem barbarian is silly.
it's. Do you know what I know it's kind of the one people. Okay, particularly if you look at the player handbook as it is by itself,
It's the best one in the
Um,
player handbook without any shadow of a doubt.
yeah, it is absolutely. But there's other stuff in there as well. I think if you pick the wolf one, you get basically a pack tactics.
Oh yeah, but you can do that though. You can do bear at 3, wolf at 6. You can change your
You can interchange them. Yeah, yeah,
you can
absolutely.
change your totem animals. But yeah, I was actually going to go wolf totem barbarian with Lug originally, and then Ancestral Guardian came out as UA, and I was like, oh, this is literally the character I wrote.
Oh yeah, we talked about that before because
Yeah,
you literally designed Lug as a Celtic Viking kind of warrior who has tattoos over his entire body and they represent the spirits of his ancestors and stuff. And you had all of this stuff.
I had the
And even
paragraph they have before the Ancestral Guardian class abilities, where it
yeah,
explains what an Ancestral Guardian is basically written into my backstory. It was hilarious.
yeah. I think like yeah, because in that first campaign you kind of wrote out what your people were like. I think they were called the Vrykund. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Him said the DM did that. The
right,
DM
yeah.
named the place, but I was like, "This is what I kind of what I want to do," and he was like, "Oh, you'd probably be from here," and then they renamed the isles. Yeah, the
Cool.
Vrykund Isles. Nice remember.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, like, yeah. So you, it was mad when I remember the first session after that UA came out. We were sitting at the table, and I remember you saying to the DM like, "Oh, can I take this UA class because I know it's UA or whatever, but like it's basically exactly what my character is." And he was like, "Yeah, sure, it seems to fit." And I'm like, "Cool, nice one."
Yeah, yeah. It's the one time I was like, "Nice, awesome."
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah. So yeah, it's trying out new characters and stuff, and getting a feel for new stuff is great. Because it's you kind of there's always teething at the start of a campaign,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of finding the vibe of what your character, particularly because it's the first time you're in with this group, and you want to know what
Yes.
characters you bounce off well, what players you bounce off well, and stuff like that, and what the dynamic is like.
Yeah.
Um, One reason I probably most frequently run one shots for giving new players a feel for the game, because I really enjoy introducing people to the hobby. I think there's a lot of like misconceptions about it being, very nerdy, or I think a lot of people don't understand. Because they know it's about dice, and they
Yeah.
know it has something to do with like Lord of the Rings kind of fantasy kind of stuff and all that, and a lot of people get those parts, but I don't think they know beat for beat how a game goes, and
Yeah.
it's a lot more fluid than they would think. Because I remember only a couple of weeks ago I ran a one shot for some friends of mine, and as soon as I started, I described them being, on a dock. They just pulled into a dock, and I was like, okay, anything you guys would like to do? And they were kind of looking at me, and a couple of them are kind of like, holding their dice, kind of like, do I have to roll? Should I roll for something? Whose
Yeah.
turn is it? And like, I'm like, okay, well, okay, I should explain. The game is a lot more free form when you're not in combat, and it's kind of just anyone can tell me they want to do something, we can do it, and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But I think trying to get that dynamic across the people can be the tricky part. But a one shot is a great way of doing that, particularly if you may be looking for new players for a campaign. One shots can be good, give people a feel like, would you be interested in playing this weekly and stuff like that, or maybe every second week, or how it goes. um, and yeah, I mean, like just in the couple of one shots I've run in the past couple of months, people have been very very interested in the game, and they've taken to it quite well, which I'm really happy about. Um, so yeah, and actually your one shot you ran, your 1/3 shot that you ran recently, was very
Yeah.
much to show new players, a
Yeah.
couple of friends of yours, like how the game runs, and
Yeah.
and like I think that I think it's easy enough if you know your friends, people.
Yeah.
You'd be like, you're someone who would get this. You don't know you'd get it, but you would get this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be always kind of fun to introduce new people to the hobby, and a one shot's the perfect way
Yeah.
to do it.
I had like two or three friends who I thought would really enjoy D&D if they just tried it, and
Hmm.
like they had kind of like before sort of vaguely inquired about like D&D and what is it when I started really getting into it. And like I did, and like one or two of them I had actually played in a very very cursed one game of like, I think it must have been like third edition D&D or something back in college, that like a friend who was a terrible DM
Oh
man
yes.
for us. Um,
Yeah, I remember you telling me about this before. Yeah.
so bad, it was so bad. But yeah, it was just awful. And so I kind of knew if I could get them into it and like have them see just how much like fun you could just kind of have bouncing off other people and like figuring out a story and that kind of stuff would work. So I messaged like four friends, who was trying to get into it, and three of them were like, yeah, I'm down. And then the one person I was like, I know he'd love it, but he's the one I was like, he's the most likely to just be like, nah, no, I'm not doing it, sorry.
Right. Okay.
And
He's the most convincing.
he just isn't very into fantasy and stuff, um,
Okay.
which is hilarious because he loves League. He played League for years. But yeah, I messaged him. I was like, hey man, we're running the D&D one shot. It'll just be like a one game thing. I was fucking so wrong. That's 33 minutes and 20 seconds, Connor.
Cheers.
But I was just so wrong. And then like he just went back and was like, yeah, appreciate you inviting me and stuff, but yeah, just definitely not my thing. And I was like, you know
Oh
what?
yeah.
Fair. That's fair. And I just like immediately give
Yeah.
up because
No, I mean, like, look, I think, I think it's difficult to know what for certain. Like, yeah, if you're anywhere on the fence about D&D, I would highly recommend at least trying it. And if you try it once and you're like, yeah, because I've had players I've run one shots for go, that was fun, but I definitely wouldn't play that like every week or even like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that was a fun thing. Maybe I'll play again once again in future. But and I think that's fine. That's like, I think you can enjoy it without being the obsessive levels of D&D crazy that you and I are.
Yeah. One of one of the new guys that I introduced in that campaign, Owen, he's actually playing like Star Wars D&D now.
Oh, the Empire's Edge is it called? I think.
Edge of the Empire, maybe.
Yeah, it's one of the other. I
It's
can't
yeah,
remember now.
it's some form of that syntax.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I've heard good things about that. I think Jesse Cox runs that actually on his.
I think he has a couple different ones he ran, because I know he does, because he was playing in one of them and he showed up on camera with the C3PO
Yes,
mask
I
and,
saw
and
that
thing
clip.
on.
Oh man, So
Yes,
good.
but no, that one actually looked really cool. I've thought about picking that up at some point, and learning to play it. It's unique because you need like a special set of dice that come with the game.
Yeah,
And they have certain color codes and symbols on them that mean different things.
yeah,
But it's really cool and like you can mix and match. Like you can play like a force sensitive, but that doesn't mean you have to be a Jedi. You could be a force sensitive who uses like pistols, or you can be a pilot and a smuggler and all the kind of classic Star Wars tropes. But I mean, it could be really, really fun to do
yeah.
a short campaign, and that at some point if I were to pick it up. I'm actually now thinking about it. I'm almost certain Gavin probably has that.
He definitely has
Gavin has,
that. I'm gonna
Gavin
say.
has so many games that like they're
Yeah.
on his shelf and like he has them, but we haven't ever played them because we're just so in 5e.
Yeah, that's true. And do you know what? That's actually probably another good reason to run a one shot. If you have a new gaming system that you want to just give a shot, that's an absolutely great like for all, as well as like you can give your DM a break to be a player. A player can get a chance to DM or GM if it's a different system. Like I have we were only talking about this recently because I put some of the stat blocks for the ring rates into our D&D chat, but I have the official Lord of the Rings 5e setting.
Yeah, so the supplement that comes along.
Yeah.
Was it a Kickstarter or was it a
Oh, I can't remember. I think it was just like a third party release. I don't think
right?
it was kickstarted, but or it might have been. I'm not too sure, but I got it, and there's lots of really interesting stuff in there. And that'd be really fun with you. Like if you crit a ring wraith, you have to make a strength save, or your weapon explodes.
Oh, like when Pippin's it was a Pippin? No, Merry, when Merry stabbed the Witch King
Yeah.
and he's like his arm got really messed up because of it. Yeah,
Same
that's
with
so cool.
Eowyn as well when she
And
killed him.
she
Yeah,
stabbed it in and it just burst into a load of shards. Yeah, that's really cool
yeah.
though. That's really cool.
Like
There's a ton of survival stuff in that as well, like rules
yeah.
for like survival and traveling through the wilds and stuff.
I think so, yeah. It's been a while since I've given it a good look through, but I also just remember there's specific new classes for that as well. Like I think what I remember one of them is called like the Slayer. And it's like you look through it and it's like this is fighter and barbarian combined into one subclass, and like because you're all meant to be hero, like everyone is way more OP than a standard D&D character as well
Right.
from the
Okay.
brief bit I've read. I think you're all like way stronger and have like a ton of abilities and all this kind of crazy stuff. It'd be a real fun one to do someday.
Definitely. Yeah. You would be the person to run that because
I
you
know.
have a near encyclopedic knowledge of the lore of Middle Earth and stuff. Whereas like I know I'm
Near
very much a movie
encyclopedic.
fan.
I wouldn't say near encyclopedic. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. I could run a game.
Yeah.
I could probably run a game.
Yeah, I mean, and like you see, the thing is, you would know. I think you have a better understanding of the greater context of the world. I know the movies very well, and I have some extended knowledge beyond that as well that I've kind of researched just if you for fun on the wikis.
Yeah.
That's the thing I do, by the way, just exploring Wikipedia for fun. But yeah, no, I think you would be the person to run something like that if we ever were to do that. I think the other class, if I'm not, I could be completely misremembering that, is like the warden,
Yes,
which might be,
that's right as well. Yeah.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
and you can be, and obviously I think you can be like a Dunedain style ranger as well.
Yeah, the one thing you'd have to do, we talked about session zeros
Yes, we did.
last week. One thing you'd have to do in session zero of that is to sit down and go, right, first rule, you can't all be Aragorn.
Yeah.
You can't all be a Dunedain Ranger. You can't all be the Forgotten Prince from a lost lineage. Okay.
Right, there can be one Aragorn and one Faramir. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's Aragorn and there's Aragorn Zero. Aragorn,
Yeah.
Aragorn with all the sugar taken out of him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just it's Aragorn lacking all sex appeal whatsoever.
No, like Faramir is actually a really cool character, and he had a really hard life. But he's actually
He
ends
did.
up with Eowyn at the end of it.
Yeah, yeah. I remember pointing out to someone before, they were like, "No, that didn't happen," and I'm like, "Look, watch Return of the King," and it might be an extended scene, I don't know, but there's a scene when all the other soldiers march off to the Black Gate for the final battle, and obviously the two of them are injured, so they can't go. But they're like watching the armies leave, and like Faramir comes up to Eowyn, and he's just like, he's kind of comforting her because she's like, "Oh, they're all going after their deaths."
She says something about like, I think it's like the cold rain of winter or something, and he's like, "Oh no, it's the first rains of spring."
Yeah. Yeah, but like, yeah, so like, it's kind of implied, and also like at the coronation. I
Yeah.
was gonna say wedding. It's not a wedding. It's a coronation. At the coronation, the two of them are there together as well.
In-
Clearly, they came together. Clearly,
It's-
they were each other's plus ones. Obviously, guys, come on.
It's because in the books he's the one who finds her amongst the dead on Pelennor Fields. Everyone thinks she's dead.
Oh, really?
I think either he finds her or she's brought in. It's been a while since we read them. I think she's brought into like a hall, or she's being carted off, and Faramir sees her and thinks she might still be alive, and everyone's like, no, she's dead. They're mourning her. So he brings his bracer down over her mouth, and he sees her breath reflected in the polished metal of his bracer. And it's like, no, she's alive, and he brings her in to get healed.
There's that scene, which I don't know, is it? I think
it's in the extended edition. Yeah, there's the scene, because he says that they have that little dialogue between each other, and then he like holds her hand and stands and watches on the battlements with her, and then at the coronation they're there again.
Oh yeah, but I was thinking about the scene where she's found on the battlefield. She's found by Éomer.
Yeah, Éomer, and he like mourns her and stuff. Yeah, in the book.
But he like screams his head off. He's like, no.
Fair play to Karl Urban.
Yeah, I've had such an on and off relationship with Karl Urban, like, because every second thing he does, I don't like him in, and like I don't know why. I really like him as a person. Like he's great, and the things I like him in, I really really like him in. But like every now and again, he just do a project. I'm like, I'm not feeling you in this role at all. Like I don't like him in the Star Trek movies.
He was the main character in Doom.
He was actually. I liked him in that. And then I liked him in. He did a show called, I think it was called Almost Human, which only ran for like a season. But it was a cop show based in the future, and every cop was paired with a synthetic, android or whatever that looked human. And he got paired with this forgotten model that was cheaper and older, but actually had more humanity to them. And he was like closed off from the world and didn't want to be involved with people, but then the robot like couldn't really be involved with people but wanted to, because he wanted to learn how to have emotions, and that was their whole like thing. Yeah. I actually really enjoyed the show, but it got cancelled, so yeah.
And then there's Billy Butcher.
And then there's Billy Butcher, and I absolutely adore Billy Butcher.
Oh, season 3 in October. Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So yeah,
all that was off one joke about Faramir being like the Coke Zero to Aragorn's Coke.
Yeah. So introducing new players, testing out new characters or homebrew monsters or anything like that. Trying a different theme as well. If you're in a maybe in like a campaign, you're running an arc for a while, and it's maybe it's a gothic, maybe you're kind of doing something from Van Richten's, and it's just really, really heavy for a long time. Could be nice just to be like, hey, you guys are now playing pirates on a tropical island for a one shot. Let's go get some treasure and just have a good time,
Yeah.
It's just to break that, and you can totally get back into the darkness and all the kind of gothic vampires and werewolves.
That's hilarious, because when you said that, my first instinct was, I might run a Van Richten's and one shot this Halloween.
When you said that, my first shot is, is Martin going to do like Vampire Pirates?
Vampirates? Maybe.
Vampirates.
Mike would love that. Mike would absolutely eat that up. Oh my god.
Do you know what? Here's the thing, right?
Wouldn't it
be
really...
Mike is the thing for pirates, and I think it has to do with...
It's One Piece. No, it's One Piece.
One Piece. Yeah, because I mean, it's not the first time. I ran a one-shot in our first campaign, based in a kind of town. It was kind of Stranger Things-esque.
Yes, I remember that. That was really fun.
But he straight up, he showed up, he's like, I'm going to play a ranger, but my ranger's a pirate. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And he played a pirate. Like, Mike has a thing for pirates.
He really does.
Yeah. Actually, not only that, when the campaign ended in our first campaign, he was playing a sorcerer.
My god, he did.
And I in the last session, I was talking to you guys, and I was like, hey, so like, now that we're done, where do you think your characters will go throughout the rest of their lives? What will be the rest of the course of their lives?
Yeah.
And you were kind of like, I'll rebuild my order, and we'll do this. And Tara's like, I'll return to my people, but I think I'll encourage them to like explore the world more and not be so isolationist. And then Mike was like, so I have a cloak that can instantly teleport me to the astral sea. I just want to be a space pirate. And I was like, why not? Look, the campaign's over. Who cares?
He also took the Clockwork Man's like spaceship, the interdimensional traveling spaceship.
Yeah. So he's become like a pirate / Time Lord that just travels the astral sea eternally.
You've basically just described a combination of two of Mike's favorite things: Doctor Who and pirates.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to see if Mike really tried his hardest. No, what am I saying? Shamash was absolutely him just playing the Doctor.
Oh,
hands down. Yeah, head to toe. Yeah.
He used to play "I Am the Doctor" for his song, for his theme, whenever he was doing something awesome in the arc.
The time on that spaceship, when he was like, I delete all the final command before I leave, delete all information. And I was just like, and the moment the music wasn't even playing then, but it was in my head. Because when he said that, I'm like, it's like I'm watching Doctor Who right now. This is insane.
I just got, it so reminded me of that bit where like the doctor's like, just this once, everybody lives.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it was just so, oh man, yeah. God, that's Mike is responsible for a lot of really awesome moments in our D&D campaigns.
He does, yeah. And one last thing, and that doesn't come up terribly often as to why you would run a one shot, but I've tried it once or twice now, where twice now technically, is to provide a cinematic, provide lore cinematically. You guys had a moment where you met Aerith's mother, who was an elf, so she's considerably older than the rest of you, and you were asking about this historical event, and she was like, "I was at that battle. I can tell you exactly what happened." But rather than me, the DM, sitting there for 30 minutes reading off her words about what happened, we stopped the session. I said, "Cool. So next week you will not be playing any of your normal characters. I'll be giving you characters, and you'll be playing through that battle as Eric's mom." I had Gavin play his own mom in that session. And I'm like, and the rest of you will play a bunch of characters, and you'll be the squad that went in during that battle to like defeat the enemy and stuff like that. So you guys have to play it out firsthand, which I think is a way more interesting way. And one, that gives you a break from your character. You can try something else. Two, I think it gives you way more perspective on the world if you have multiple characters you've played or been in that. And like three, it's just very interesting to be like, cool, let's just teleport away. We're fade to black, and then we open on a battlefield, and it's an entirely new scene with new people, and you guys can see it from an entirely different perspective. But for your characters, you've been told all this information,
Yeah, I can safely say that stretch of 2-3 sessions is probably my absolute favorite point in this campaign.
What happened over that? Like,
it was like we get there, we find out that Enfys knows Owen. And then we play through the whole stretch of the War of Three Blades, and then like the next one after as well, where it was just like the wrap up of that, and then out onto our next session. That like stretch of like 3-4 sessions, probably my favorite 4 sessions of this campaign.
That's really good to know.
It was just really super unexpected, and like I somehow had never thought of doing that myself either. I was just because it was super unexpected. We learned a lot of new lore.
Look, I mark all our videos as explicit anyway.
That's
really
fine.
Doesn't matter.
We learned a shitload of new lore. We got to play some new fun classes. Like Gavin saw through the twist, but you caught me entirely fucking blind with it, which was awesome. And yeah, set up a lot of stuff that I can get into with Lug then in like later levels.
Yeah. I'm glad, and like it was fun. It was a really weird thing when Gavin joined the campaign, because you guys were 3 very different characters, and Gavin forms a focal point where he has, for better or worse, he has an interaction or an interactable plot with each of you, because he has the whole aberration thing, which he has in common with Dan. He has the hating the Empire and like oppressive human regimes, which he has with Wabu, and then he has a thing where like his country and your country have been at war for a long time, but somehow you guys make it work as friends and cooperate and stuff like that.
Yeah, somehow.
But I mean, like, I when he told me the character he wanted to play, and like the thing is, I didn't prompt him at all, which is hilarious. I didn't say, here are the other 3 characters. He's like, I was thinking Bloodhunter, and I'm like, yeah, sure, we don't have that, so that's excellent. And I'm like, that'll also fill out the intelligence kind of deficiency in the class, because other people aren't expecting to. That sounds really bad.
The intelligence deficiency in the party, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
You know what I meant?
Like, I've an int. How dare you? I have an int of 9.
none of you were spec'd into intelligence.
No, that's true.
So I was, and actually none of you were spec'd into Dex either. And he was like, I'm going to be an archer bloodhunter. I'm like, that works perfectly. So it rounds out the class or the party very nicely. But yeah, I didn't prompt him with any of the stuff about aberrations. I didn't prompt him with any of the stuff about like elves and humans and their kind of relationship. I told him there was an empire that's kind of waging war, and he's like, I'd probably hate them, and I'm like, that works perfectly. So yeah, it worked out really, really well. But yeah, that's I think that's one good way of doing it. I think it can also be interesting, like we did another one shot kind of where you guys were captured and arrested.
Yes.
Everyone except for you, actually, in this case. Your character managed to get away, just about, but the rest of the party were captured, and you had to go back to the resistance and be like, hey, my friends just got captured, and they're like, okay, we'll plan an escape. And then I turned to the other 3, and I was like, right, next week, come to me with 3 characters who are members of the Resistance who are going to go with Lug and bust your actual characters out. Which was also very fun. I think everyone got to play some really cool stuff there and try out some other characters they had in mind.
Who knew there were so many religious characters in there in the Resistance? It was like it was two paladins and a bard, I think.
Two paladins and a bard, and the most bonkers bard.
Oh my god, yeah. It was a gun paladin and a Thor hammer paladin, and then just whatever that bard was that Mike made.
Mike went into the character creator and hit randomize.
Oh my god, like I want to believe he was like highly sleep deprived when he made that character, because otherwise I'm worried about him.
Martin, when it comes to one shots, and maybe I'm asking the wrong person, I apologize. One shots, because they're single session, it can be tricky to fit everything into a single 4 to 5 hour session, depending on how long you play. Do you have any tips for good time management? Again, I might be asking the wrong person. But do you have any tips for good time management that can help people to contain, that their session within that allotted time?
I think having like a timeline or an outline of how the plot is planned to go, not necessarily how you want it to go, but like in an idea, in a vacuum, how this story would proceed. Like if you were just writing a story, how you would set it all up and that kind of stuff. And then that way you have a track of, you kind of know what needs to happen and when. Let me see, because I have notes from the last one shot I wrote for us. I ran for us here, and I think I literally wrote a timeline somewhere. I have tore all these pages out.
I do. I completely agree. That's my first point here as well. Is careful planning, because I do run one shots fairly linearly. They're I wouldn't call them a strict railroad, but there is a relative railroady aspect to them. But that's because we got 4 hours, and I've got to get you from A to Z in that time. And if this was a campaign, I'd let you go wherever you want. If I'm like, hey, so the princess is in that castle, and you're like, let's go to the other town and get drunk, I'd be like, sure, it's a campaign, do what you want, But in the 4 hours, I've kind of got to get you to rescue the princess from the castle. So let's kind of nudge you gradually in that direction.
It's a bit hyperbolic, but I'd say there's no such thing as a sandbox one shot.
Because even other people I've seen, I think Ginny D did a video on one shots either recently, or maybe I just went back through her log and watched an older video of hers, but she talked to her DM and interviewed him in that episode, and he talked about he would design one shots in such a way that there are different threads you can follow, but they all lead to the same place, in which case that has a linear aspect to it as well. You're going to end up in the same spot facing the same bad guy, or coming to the same conclusion in the mystery, but how you get there is somewhat more open, and I think that's a good way to do it. But there does definitely need to be a certain level of linearity that one to a one shot, because again, you need to have the beginning, middle, end of that story in that session. Ideally, you don't want to be going over. If you do, it's not the worst thing in the world, but ideally you don't want to be going over into a session 2.
Yeah, very true. Which is something I continually fail to do. I honestly, I write up all this stuff with all the best intentions, but like I inadvertently entirely derailed our first session of one shot by having you guys roll carousing, because I was planning it for the first combat to happen at night, and then stuff was already in motion already, and I was like, right, we're off the rails here, we're just going to work with it. And I kind of pulled it around with.
Yeah, that's actually kind of brings me on to my second point then, because my other top tip, which is they are diametrically opposed tips, but they feed into one another very, very nicely, is careful planning and also improv the hell out of it. Because there are definitely going to be times where the players get really obsessed with this little side thing, or they take too long on the puzzle, or combat drags on longer than it should because all the players are new and it's a bit sloggy. And when that happens, totally fine. I've cut entire segments out of it. Like I ran some of the guys. This is going back a couple of years. I ran some of the guys through a dungeon as part of a second of a trilogy of one shots. I ran them through a dungeon in that one, and there was meant to be a whole room where they found I might have been some troglodytes or something like that, and they were meant to run to a swarm of troglodytes and fight all them. And I was looking at the clock, and after they got to the first or not the first room, but like I think it's maybe the third or fourth room along the thing, I was like, if I have to do that troglodyte thing and then also do the fight at the end with the corrupted angel, I'm like, that's gonna take forever. So I'm like, okay, I'll just cut that and I'll just have them kind of I'll rearrange the dungeon. They'll just go straight from this room to the angel thing, and
Yeah.
that'll be that. And it was a great session. It played out fantastically, but you'll know yourself what's important. I think when you're planning a session, it's good to have some things in there that are like almost like time killers if you do need to fill it out if things
Yeah.
are going faster than you think. But more often than not, things are going slower than you think, and you need to be like, oh, I need to get them to this thing now because we have an hour left, and I need to get them to fight this dude and get back to town and collect the reward. So
Yeah, and if you're ever stuck for like something to fill time in your one shot, just throw in Boglin the Goblin NPC. Your party will spend like 45 minutes talking to him.
that is very true, yeah. And that's the thing, like people will gravitate. D&D is so unpredictable as a thing because you have, 3 to 4 or 5 or maybe even more other people playing the game with you, and you can only, even if you know them really well as friends, you can only predict what they will do so much.
Yeah.
But they will gravitate or come to the wrong conclusions sometimes, and I think a certain level of linearity is really important in a one shot. And like I said, careful planning, but planning in such a way that if I need to drop this particular puzzle room because I feel like it's going to take them like 20 minutes and we still have to do the final fight or whatever happens, I don't want them to be too bogged down in that, and
Absolutely.
then not get I think it's more important that you have a solid beginning, middle, and end, and there's probably like if that's points like 1, 3, and 5, your 2 and your 4 can be little filler stuff that's fun, and they can definitely have a good time with it. But if they're on point 3 and you have an hour left, drop 4 entirely, go straight to
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's good to plan
it's
set pieces as well. Like stuff that you can literally just plug in or plug out if necessary. Like you were saying, there's like you just like cut that whole troglodyte swarm fight.
yeah,
Like I'll even in terms of like how I plan sessions sometimes, like if I'm like knowing where they are, I'll be like, okay, these are like 3 or 4 big things that could happen. And
yeah,
I'll maybe write like 1 or 2 that I intend to maybe happen, or I can see them definitely encountering, and then I'll have 2 or 3 other optional things. And if those optional things don't come true, like if they don't go and find those optional things, I might stick them in maybe next week's session if they're still in the same area and just
yeah, yeah,
rearrange things. And I think with one shots as well, something that's really useful to do is to just like it, because it's not a campaign, it is more linear. You can kind of go, okay, they start here, inciting incident. This is where they go to investigate the incident. This is this is their first encounter with a thing. Then they investigate more. Then they find the big thing. Like it's like you can kind of beat it out, like going to go beat for beat kind of out along the thing a bit. Just
yeah.
because it is that bit more linear. And then then it's just like, okay, this is the framework I have, and I'm cool, and I have a good idea of what's around this in terms of like what's in the area they're in. Like sometimes I'll write a list of like here are the available resources, and I'll have it like, actually I think I literally did that for the resources available, boom, page of resources, and then
Yeah.
and it's like, and then on the back of that I think, oh yeah, then on the back I had the combats that I wanted written out. Combats that I
Out
wanted
of frame, then, right?
combats that I wanted written out down to here. And then like this is all just so like I have like resources available in the Silver Harp, Bartender, Happer Durgan, Mail, Owlin, mid tier in 2 GP per day, and then I have like a brief description here of it, and then I have
If for no other reason, I should have gone to college just to pick up this level of organizational skills.
oh god. But yeah, then I have Alchemist, the Grove, Shopkeeper, Female Lizard Folk, Otho Kent. You never actually, I think. Oh no, you did go and see. Yeah, I think you did see her actually. And then I had a library there as well in case any of you guys wanted. It looks like if you guys had gone to the library, you could have found that information about who was building the temples before the end of the thing. Because you could have looked up books. You could have looked up, if you looked for books on like construction or the history of the temples, you would have found out who had built all the temples. And then I have mission. Oh yeah, and then I had like other things because it was like a mystery kind of session. I had stuff like I had like a page written up with like clues and other stuff, and then this one is, I tore all these out just because this is my notebook I write my normal sessions in, and I didn't want to get confused. And then I have this page which is all the important NPCs and a brief, and then this is like, it's like their name, their position, and then this is like from here to here is like a description of them, so I can quickly refer back to them.
This is kind of interesting because a couple of weeks ago we did an episode of the podcast about planning our sessions and how we plan, and I know my thing is like, look, I will plan the world, I'll plan the town you're in, I'll know a lot about the town, and I'll have a general idea of where you're going, and that way then if I know the world well enough, if you guys come to me and you're like, well, I want to do this, I'm like, yeah, there is one of those in town, and it's this person, and their name is this, and blah blah blah, and I can make it work on the fly like that. And you are like more of a planner, an
We discovered
architect.
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. In the session,
Yeah.
it's a good episode. But you discovered that on the fly. But now what you're kind of describing to me sounds more like what, a gardener, is it? Because you understand. And you were even just saying like there's no such thing as like a sandbox,
One shot.
a sandbox one shot, but you designed a town and you knew enough about the town and like you were ready for us to go like, oh, maybe we'll go to the library and that's a thing, or maybe we'll go here. You kind of did design a sandbox, which was the city itself, and in a gardener fashion,
Kind
and
of, yeah,
then you were kind of
definitely.
ready for us to kind of discover things about the mystery in a lot of different ways. But that's a really good structure in my mind.
I just like try and anticipate what you might need to fulfill the mission. So like it's
Yeah,
like you were looking into stuff, so I was like, maybe they might want information about certain things, certain houses. Like none of you are from the city, so you might want to go to the library. You might
yeah,
want to look for that info. Like a library would be a good place to look for that. And I'm like, okay, then like depending on what characters they have, some people might want to like get like caltrops or others. So there's probably a smith. There'll be an inn because they'll need a place to stay. And then because my plot revolved around five temples and like a plaza, I had to put all those places in and have a reason for them to be there. And then I kind of just I had very like bare bones descriptions about all the areas like in terms of what it contained. But like yeah, I say like I'm definitely like of the architect variety. Where I definitely do like a good hard outline, but like I would have the outline, and that would be like almost a way to fire up my own imagination. And then if someone asks me a question that's tangentially linked to
yeah.
what my plan is, I can improvise well for that then. And that's kind of how
I get
I
you.
structure one shots as well, where I'll do like this is the kind of one shot I'm doing for them. This is how I foresee it going, but I am fully ready to entirely abandon chunks of it and just roll with the players.
Yeah, I am. When it comes to one shots, I'm. It's interesting again because I'm just I'm finding out more and more about how you and I plan sessions differently the whole time. But I mean, like I'm kind of similar where I'm like, look, I want to have. Mine's it again. It's not more linear, but I can improvise on the fly because I know what the setting or the town or whatever is. But I would have a plan made out of like certain arcs I want them to hit or certain acts I should say. So like there should be a setup. I read a little intro. I describe where they are. Maybe they're in a tavern. Maybe they're just coming into town or on a boat or something like that.
Mm.
Then there is like, and the setup will often involve the person giving them the job as well. They get off the boat. Someone's like, "Are you adventurers? Oh, I need help with something," and then that involves them getting the job as well. I like putting people into combat fairly early on because I feel like it gets them
Forges a
it
thing.
gets the blood flowing. I think it gets you involved in it and committed to the whole action thing. So on the two one shots I've ran recently, one of them was a hot start. They literally got off the boat, walked up the stairs on the cliff, and before they reached the top, I'm like, you hear the sounds of fighting and screaming from the top of the cliff.
Okay.
They fought a bunch of orcs, and I very nearly killed one of them in that combat immediately because he was an
Goddamn.
archer, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna run around this corner and hide here," but the corner was kind of like, if the orc is here, the corner was kind of closer to the orc, so he just ran right up on him and said like cornered him instead of pummeling him.
No.
Um, so I very nearly killed him in the first fight he ever had in D&D,
Mm.
which would not have been a good experience. But yeah, and then I also did the same with the other one. They had the setup. The priest was like, "Oh, someone robbed something." Oh no, she's like, "What?" They said, um, there was one of our priests was down in the catacombs below the monastery, and we found him down there. He didn't come back up for a while. We went looking for him. We found him, and he'd been stabbed like 5 times. And we don't know if it was a creature that did it to him or if it was a person, but he had all these puncture marks in his stomach. He's alive, but he can't wake up to tell us who did it. So we've locked the entrance to the catacombs. But we need someone to go down there and find who or what did this. So straight away, the guys went to investigate the catacombs, and it was bang straight into a fight inside the temple or inside the catacomb chamber of one of their patron saints of this town.
That's really cool.
Um, So I like to get them in. So setting, and then like usually a combat, and then I'll usually have like an exploration section, which is going to be like it will. I like to put at least one trap, and if I can, at least one puzzle into every one shot, if possible, if it makes sense. Because I feel, particularly because I run one shots often for new players, I want them to get a taste of everything that D&D
Yes.
has to offer. So I'll try and go cool. All right, set up some sort of social interaction with the person giving you the job. You can ask them questions. I'll talk to you as your characters. You'll talk as your characters. You'll get a feel for that. Into combat, which is a bit of fun, get you invested, and then we go exploration. So I'll be doing skill checks. Are you sneaking into this place? Are you going to climb this wall, freehand? Are you going to, I don't know, try and navigate through this forest and track the people who were just attacked you or something like that,
Yeah.
Then I'll be like, so that's skills covered. Maybe there's a pit trap along the track that leads back to their hideout or something. So they'll learn about what traps are, usually the hard way. And then I'll do like what was it? Traps and puzzles. Yeah, puzzles aren't always. I actually have a lot of trouble with puzzles in D&D because I find it hard to conceptualize them from nothing. And if you look online, you only get the same five puzzles over and over again because everyone knows the same five puzzles.
I like taking inspiration from like Resi puzzles.
Resident Evil actually has some great stuff for that,
Yeah.
because they make no sense in the context of a real world, like Resident Evil. But it's like, why would a police station need several gems that fit into a thing that open up a secret passageway to the sewers? That makes no goddamn sense, but it's great inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I think like it's lots of stuff like that is super useful. And like I think there's a thing you said there is where you want to give something like a taste of everything D&D has to offer. And I'm gonna make a pro wrestling analogy here, and it's gonna it's gonna be weird. You're gonna think it's weird, but trust me, it applies. So like
Okay.
what people say about like good pro wrestling is that it's like a 3-ring circus, right? You have like the acrobats over here, you have the strongman, you have the like lion tamers and the other one. So like there's something for everyone amongst everything, right? And the same can kind of be said for like a good one shot, where like yeah, there's going to be some players who really really like the combat. There's going to be some players who don't like combat at all, and vice versa. RP don't like RP. Like treats it like a video game. Doesn't want to like interact with really like doesn't want to really interact with NPCs. Just wants what they can give them, kind of speed runs and stuff. So you could there's all that kind of
Murder
stuff.
hobos.
Yes, all that kind of stuff. So like if you put a bit of everything in there, you can kind of hit something for everybody in the party, so everybody in the party gets to use their skills or their gimmick, because like everybody, like even newer players, they'll usually latch onto one particularly cool thing their character can do. Because like I don't know why I'm doing the Italy hand gesture all the time. But like they'll usually read their sheet and be like, that sounds really cool, I want to use that as much as I can, and then you'll be like, okay. And then like it's something I actually did with this last one shot was because the new people were so new. I sat with them and helped them build the characters over Zoom. And then that way I was able to kind of work out what kind of character they're playing, and because I had a little bit more knowledge about what kind of character they were playing and what they were doing, I could kind of skew some of the things I was planning towards things that they would be able to show off their skills. And same for all of you guys. Like once you see the party composition, you can kind of be like, okay, I have like so like in that one we had like 2 druids, 2 rogues, we had 2 druids, 2 bards, a rogue, and a paladin. Sorry, no, you were a Cyanite.
Psy Warrior.
Psy Warrior.
I keep saying Cyanide as well because that's what it was in the EUA, but it's Psy Warrior in the published book. Yeah.
So like I was like, okay, yeah, so we'll have some like strengthy stuff for Conor to do with his like Psy Warrior stuff. We can have some like animal related challenges or like exploration things that for like the rogue and the druids to get involved in, and then I literally had a battle of the bands for the 2 bards.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, you could totally cater. I mean, like, there's no if you come up with a one shot or something like that, or you're trying to come up with a one shot, and you say to these players, "Hey, let's come up with 4 characters, and we'll go with that and do the one shot." And 3 of them come back and they're like, "I'm going to be a fighter. I'm a fighter with a sword. I'm a fighter with a hammer. I'm a fighter with a bow." And the third person's like, "I'm going to be a wizard." There is no real reason for you to put any sneaking or lockpicking related stuff into that one shot because you're not really catering to any of those people. Now, if you're playing a campaign that's really long campaign, there's going to be times when sneaking is required or whatever, and if your party isn't geared towards that's going to happen. But that's you guys, yeah. The the least sneaky train heist ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like that's fine because it's a one shot, it's a full campaign. In a one shot, yeah, you're definitely gonna have you're gonna want to cater to what people want or what people's characters are good at to give them the idea of you're the hero in this story. And because it's such a short story as well, it's
Mm.
not like it's a campaign where you'll have plenty of time to emphasize that they are the heroes of this adventure. You kind of need to be a little bit on the nose sometimes, and you need to be like, you need to be able to give them almost immediate gratification for
Mm.
the choices they've made in skills and stuff like that, and be like,
Yes.
I saw like, what was it? I had a couple. I'm trying to think of the most recent one shot I ran. I definitely had a couple of things where like one of them or a couple of them were like, oh, we want to do this thing, and I'm like, oh, that's great. Now you are, I think it might have been like oh, do you know what it was? It was a domination ability, but I had elves in the party who are
Ah, okay.
resist the charm. So I said that's one of them. Now he didn't know this, but I was like, so you feel something try to push into your mind, but and I had to make the roll. But now you're an elf, right? And elves have a thing where they are resistant to charm effects. So I wanted to roll with advantage, and he was like, "Oh, cool, unreal." So I'm showing him your character is good because blank,
Yeah. I like doing
which can be really fun.
I like doing that as well. I like to give it like a beat, and if they look like they're about to roll without rolling the advantage, I'd be like, "Did you know?" Because I want to like sometimes I've done that and I'm kind of waiting. It actually happens at my party an awful lot. Because like we've been playing for so long now, sometimes they'll just forget certain things, and certain things don't come up all that often. Like elves being immune to magical sleep.
Yeah.
So like I'm
When it
literally,
does come up though, oh man, is that fun?
it's yeah, exactly. Because you can be like, okay, yeah, I think one of my party like set off a sleep trap or something, and
Yeah.
like like half my party are elves. So like the other two of them just, I was like, okay. They were like, oh, oh, and like I was like, okay, everybody roll a con save, and then like my sorcerers just, elves are immune to magic sleep, and I was like, yes, you are, and the other two failed, and I was like, and you stand up perfectly straight as the other two party members onto the ground.
Yeah. It's really fun when you get something that's like unique to your character.
Mhm.
Like in our first campaign, I only once used magical sleep, but only one member of the party could be targeted by it because it was like three elves. Oh, sorry, two, because it was like
Three.
three elves. Oh, sorry, two elves at the time
Yeah, yeah,
because yeah, so there's two elves and then a dragonborn and a dwarf, and the dragonborn dwarf keeled over. And I think you recognized what was happening. You know, I was like, they're asleep, and you kind of looked at me, and you're like, "Guess we're both elves."
yeah, 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 yeah. I actually remember that. Yeah, yeah.
It almost never comes up, but when it does, it's brilliant. I remember in the first campaign we played, I got to use that once because
Yes,
the
the
DM
Book of
put
Eternal Boredom.
the Book of Eternal Boredom, which is like it's a magical book, and if you try to read it, you will fall asleep. And I was like, "Can I try to read it?" And the DM's like, "Yeah, sure." Like he's like, "You fall asleep," and I'm like, "No, I don't, because I'm immune to magical sleep."
Yeah,
I didn't get anything from the book, but it was just fun. It was just fun in that moment to be like, "Haha, I can read this really boring book."
yeah. Or like the first time you crit me in ages after I got the adamantine armor, and you're like, "That's a natural 20." I was like, "I'm immune to critical hits."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a weird thing as well. I don't think I crit you very often
No.
before you got it, and then when you got the adamantine armor, it was like I was constantly rolling crits, and you're like, "Yeah, but it's not a crit," and I'm like, "Oh yeah."
No, you still crit me very rare. I think at one point you crit me a
Do I?
few times. Yeah, yeah. You did
Well,
Wabu
okay,
Wabu absolutely
comparatively,
Wabu absolutely gets the worst
comparatively,
of the crits.
comparatively, I crit Mike an unnatural amount of times. I don't know
Yeah,
why, but
especially because both of us always do reckless. So you've the same like
yeah, and like he only has like one less armor class
yeah.
than you. Yeah,
It's
so
so
I
it's so
should be.
funny.
I don't know.
It's so
Actually, no, you
funny.
have 20 armor class, yeah.
No, I have 18. Half plate plus
Do you-
shield.
Oh, half less plus shield. Okay, never mind. And do you have protection as a fighting style?
No. Fighting
Sure.
style is crap, what is
Fear
my fighting
mastery.
style? No, that's
Oh,
my that's a feat.
no, sorry, dueling for the +2.
I actually have to look this up. I should know this. What the hell? Carry on. I will find out.
Yes. Anyway, but yeah, I think
It's defense for +1 AC and armor.
there we go.
Yeah.
What did I say? Protection.
Protection is the one where you can add your
It's you can
shields to
block
deck
people.
saves. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fair enough. But yeah, I think one shots really should
yeah.
include a good spectrum of stuff, so that like players get a good feel for it. Again, I run one shots primarily for people who have not played before. I like to show people the hobby and try and get them interested and stuff like that. So I think if I go traps are a thing, puzzles are a thing, I'm really showing them like a lot of what D&D can
Yeah.
be. Um, and so some of the best sessions I've had have been one shots because they kind of like compartmentalize everything into like a singular thing. So it's a bit like it's a bit like watching an action movie. It's like everything it's like a
Yeah.
load of stuff happens. Like an unnatural amount of action-packed stuff happens, which wouldn't happen in real life, but it happens in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it feels really high octane, you know. But I mean, I ran a one shot for Gavin before starting. Before, like he asked, would someone run a one shot because he had no one who played D&D and stuff, and I was like, I'll do it for you. I ran a one shot, had a great one shot because they all got really into it, and none of them had played before, but they all understood the premise and stuff. We had a great time. I ended up running 2 follow-up sessions on that. With again singular adventures contained in each, but they kind of there was an overarching story. And honestly, we had an absolute ball because the great thing about doing a one shot as well, or even a series of one shots, is that you don't need to worry about the nitty gritty of a campaign. Like, where are we staying tonight? How long will it take us to travel to this location? Stuff like that. You can literally kind of like fast track it and be like, right, this session, like I had them go from like they were in Temerai in Redalia, which is like in the middle, like the temperate part of the continent. Then they were in a city called Sinar in the absolute southernmost part of the empire, which was like surrounded by deserts. And then they went all the way to the east of the continent in the same kind of like location, but it was like jungles on the peninsula that shoots off the corner of the continent. And they were in Yuan-Ti temples and stuff like that. So they went from temperate magical city to and like temperate forests and all that to deserts and sunken tombs inside of deserts to jungles filled with poisonous creatures and tropical heat and all that and but it was great. Like we got to you get to kind of do a bit of what's it kind of world hopping where you're seeing a lot
Yeah.
of different parts of the world rather than just being like oh, you start off in a town surrounded by forests. And it's like, oh, and there's a blacksmith. Oh.
Yeah.
Literally the start of every campaign, and I'm guilty of that as well because every campaign I've run, it's like, oh, it's a small town. Oh God, and there's some forest near. Oh Christ, and it's like, oh, and you heard of goblins? Oh God, the goblins again.
I wouldn't be too harsh on yourself because we did start that small town did have a portal to the Shadowfell, and then it also had a portal to the plane of water.
Well, that was like a bit north of the mine
Yeah.
and then underground and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, there was. Yeah.
So yeah, we started off in a small town. There was a lot going on in that town, and we went to 2 different planes before we hit 5th level.
Yeah, you did because you finished the underground thing when you were like 3rd level. I think maybe you just turned 4th level when you went into
Yeah.
the plane of water,
Yeah.
and then you arrived in Caspia Air. So yeah.
We ticked onto our subclasses for the fight that Wabu died in.
Yeah, ironically,
Yeah.
when he was playing a Zealot Barbarian.
Yeah. Oh, but after those sorts of him, he ain't dying no more. Like he's it's impossible for him to die now. All he has to do is kill someone, and he's very good at that.
Look, we'll find. We'll see.
I saw that.
Everyone has 28 armor class now. Do you know what? He'd still have a decent shot of actually
Yeah.
taking him out. Like.
He's a plus. What are they? They're +3 swords. So
The +3 swords, and he has a +6 on strength, I think. So
And
that's 9 already.
and our proficiency just went up to 4. So
So +13 is it.
yeah,
Look, here's the thing, right? Late enough in D&D, like people will start having +4s and +5s anyway, and then they'll have weapons which are likely going to be +1s and +2s.
I have a plus. I have a +13 with spear mastery.
Yeah, exactly, and that's because you have that. No, you have a 20 in strength, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm natty.
Yeah, so you have a 20 in strength, and then you have a +4, which is
Yeah.
9 already, and then you have a +2 spear, which is 11, and then you have a +1 from spear mastery. Am I counting that right? 5, 4, 2 is 11.
Oh wait, is proficiency 5 now? Oh, God damn, I gotta have to.
No, your 5 is from your strength.
Why do I have 13?
You have 5 for strength, +4 for proficiency is 9, +2 for your spear is 11, plus 1 for your spear mastery feat is 12.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, it's fine. Sorry, I'm getting us very off track here. I apologize. No, that's
But
fine.
yeah. But what Martin is referencing there is that I gave Robu two very powerful +3 swords in the last session. Look, you're level 13, all right? At this point, you guys hit most of the time anyway. I'm not concerned about it. It'll be fine. If I need to, I'll just build something that
Proficiency is
has.
5. Yeah, at 13,
Oh, is it
proficiency is
5
5.
now?
Yeah,
Oh yes, sorry, it is. It's
yeah.
5, and then at 17 it becomes 6.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yeah. That's where we went wrong. We have our own D&D podcast and we don't know what proficiency is.
We do.
Um,
I look at that sheet and you're obsessively amount as well, and I could not remember my proficiency bonus, which is a bit embarrassing.
you gloss over the simple stuff though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So I think kind of recap the good things for like one shots.
Mm-hmm.
They're really fun. I like to do them as well to like explore different. We talk about exploring different themes, exploring new characters. They're basically really good experimental sessions. New players can experiment with them and the game.
Yeah.
You can experiment with new characters and monsters. You can experiment with new settings and places.
Yeah.
You can do them to kind of like to fill out the other parts of stories and stuff like that. Like we said, where rather than me telling you 30 minutes worth of lore, I'm like, next week, why don't you guys just play through that battle as the characters who were in that battle?
Yeah.
Um,
That one I ran for you there. I have this idea of doing some demonic stuff for my next campaign, because I didn't really feature demons a whole bunch in this campaign, or really at all. So like I was trying to figure out how I wanted to do that and what kind of stories I wanted. So I was like, when I came to the time when I was like, yeah, around Christmas time, that did turn into like February.
yeah.
Around Christmas time, I said I'll do a one shot for you guys because I have time off. And I was like, you know what? I'll see what I can do with some demon stuff and try and make some fun, like a fun one shot demon story. And like, so yeah, it's really good for just like, like I said, testing out settings, or maybe some like plot lines you want to try in an entirely different thing. Like, so yeah.
Do you have any one shots? We kind of talked about it a little bit at the start of the podcast. Do you have any one shots that stand out to you as being memorable, or aspects of them that being quite memorable?
I'm just trying to think now. I really liked our the Dark Souls one shot I ran for us that time.
Yes, that was very cool.
I really liked that because it was really fun. It was like all of you guys kind of interacted with a lot of NPCs, and it was fun to play the characters that are the video game characters that are like the NPCs they put in there were literally the NPCs you can interact with in your spawn area in like your main hub area in Dark Souls. And then like I threw in some other fun stuff that were like twists, like this giant serpent that like chased you guys through a forest and you thought it was going to kill you, and you like turned around to make your last stand and it just stops and it was like, hello, my name is Dark Seeker Framt, because that's how they sound in the thing. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I like doing stuff like that where I'm like, do you know what, I really like X property that I know some of my friends haven't either experienced or played, or are put off by because of the actual gameplay. Like, you don't like the Dark Souls gameplay, but I know you like the world, so I was like, Connor would probably enjoy a Dark Souls one.
A lot of hate messages now.
No,
Go
on. But like, you really like the world and it's really awesome. So I was like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that as a one shot. And I did the same with the Lightbringer books. I was reading the Lightbringer books. I really, really liked them. None of you guys had read them, so I thought it would be cool because I thought the concept of magic was so cool. It would make a really fun one shot.
Yeah, and it did. I mean, like, it was really. I remember you describing to us the way we went to go see this particular forge master, who was taking the light and like taking it almost like a foil and like lacing it around our weapons and giving them new properties based on the light he bent around them, which is very, very cool in concept. You actually want of all the book series you tell me about. One that sticks with me is the Mistborn ones, and the metal magics and stuff. That always seems really cool to me.
Allomancy, that's very, very cool.
That one's kind of like a little bit Renaissance kind of era. There's like flintlock pistols and stuff in it. Is there?
So the flintlock pistol stuff you're thinking of is from Lightbringer. I would
okay.
I would describe Mistborn as sort of like a slightly more like Victorian era is, I suppose, how I would describe Mistborn almost.
Right. Okay. So okay. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
swords and stuff are still around, and
which
like,
swords
and clubs and melee weapons are still used. There are like guns, but they're more like your 18th century kind of guns, like almost like pirate style guns. And as well, like, shooting metal at someone who can control metal doesn't end well for you.
True. What does lead do in those books?
Lead. Oh God, lead. I'm trying to remember. I think lead. I think lead like increases your. It's either lead or pewter. Pewter gives you strength. I don't think lead is one of the metals. Maybe. It's been a while since I read Mistborn. I can't remember the 7 metals off the top of my head. But I don't think it's like copper, brass, tin, pewter, steel, iron. Because steel pushes and iron pulls, or one or the other way
You're
around.
saying, yeah.
And like Mistborn use that to basically fly. They like drop a coin and they push off the coin, and that launches them into the sky. It's really cool.
That's really cool, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, I always thought that just on the stuff you.
Such a good heist one shot based on the Mistborn books, because it is a heist story, and like it would be so fun. You could actually you could be, because the main character, one of the main characters, or the primary main character, he has a crew for breaking. Like it's a heist story, so he has a crew who are all allomancers who are very very good at specific metals, like. And he literally Ocean's 11 style assembles a crew of people to specifically tackle specific issues that he would have, which is try and break into the Emperor's palace. And like you could do a really fun thing with that, where like maybe there's another crew causing a distraction in another part of town at that time to like draw fire so that they can break in, and your one shot is that crew. And you can assemble a crew, because like their crew would have like a guy who can use pewter, because he's like really really strong and can like tank hits really well and recover from stuff. They'd have like someone who they're called soothers. They're people who can like either calm or raise emotional levels in someone. I think they use brass.
I'm getting real low, big guy.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Or like if a bunch of people are standing around, if there's a really good soother there and someone's making a speech, they can be like, they can encourage people to like, yeah, like really like G up and stuff. And then there's like, so they will have like people who have all specialties in the thing, and you could totally like build a D&D party around that. Like your pewter arm could be your barbarian or your fighter or your paladin or whatever. You've like your bard who could be your soother, who like either enrages people or calms them down. You could have your rogue who's your sneaky guy, who's like the leader, Kelsier, who's Mistborn. Yeah, it would be really fun. You can do lots of really like I highly encourage.
I think maybe that's your next one shot, Martin.
Do you know what
I think that might be your next one shot.
I'll have to read I'll have to read the Final Empire again, and run a one shot for you guys in the. Well, I can't remember what the capital city is called. I can remember the spoiler name for it, but I can't remember. Crap! I need to read Mistborn again.
I need to read it for the first time, but
Dude,
you know me in books, I just have a really hard time.
Out of nowhere, he like 4 days ago just announced he had written 5 books in lockdown. 5.
Sanderson.
Yes, 5.
That man is just
Right?
a machine.
He announced he had written 5 books, like as a present for his missus over the course of quarantine for her to read. And she was just like, you know what? This is really good. You should share this with people. So he announced the Kickstarter there like 4 days ago, and was like, oh yeah.
I wish my fiance would accept D&D sessions gifts.
Yes, you can actually do that. That's how Critical Role started, as a one shot, as a birthday gift for Liam O'Brien.
Here you go. One of the best reasons ever to run a one shot. You might one day own a company based around D&D that earns $1 million in a Kickstarter.
There's this
or
tiny,
10 million, was it?
I think it was 10 or 11 million. Yeah. But, do you know that was after the full 30 days? Brandon Sanderson had 14 million in 2 days.
That's insane.
Because it's what it is. It's a subscription service, basically, right? That you pay for on the Kickstarter. And what happens is, over the course of 2023, you will get each of those 5 books. They will be released at specific times over the course of 2023, and they will be sent to you in the format of your choice.
I mean, like, Sanderson's got to be like the only writer, the only current like writer out there who could have his own subscription service, because he just churns out books so bloody fast.
He does progress bars. He does. If you go on his website, he does progress bars when he's writing a book. It'll be like the next Stormlight Archive book, and there'll be a bar with like 75% done, and then in 2 weeks later you check back and it's like 84% done. It's like, what?
I don't know if I asked you in the episode we did a few weeks ago about planning a session. What did Sanderson say? What type of writer did he say he was?
Oh, he's an architect.
He's an architect. Okay,
you can tell
that makes sense. Though.
Yeah, just by looking at the magic systems he makes, you can tell that, because they're all very, very plotted. Like he had a whole thing where like he was on a panel with fancy writers, and they were like, someone asked him how do you make a good magic system, and he was the first one up, and he was like, oh, easy softball question. Right, if you're making a magic system, it's got to have rules. And then apparently every other fantasy author at the thing was like, No, that
Yeah.
ruins all of the magic, and that just turned into the whole thing. But anyway, I'm sidetracking. But yeah,
That's a good. I get why though, because those writers want to leave things open so that if they want something unexpected to happen with the magic at in a critical moment, they absolutely can.
yeah,
Whereas Sanderson is not worried about writing himself into a corner where
he,
he's like, I'll write these rules, but he's like, I will obey the rules like the characters in my stories are meant to as
yeah.
well. You know.
It's he says it's like a tension between making sense and being explainable and understandable, and a sense of wonder.
Yeah, there's a fine line to kind of
Yeah.
walk there. Absolutely. But Martin,
Yes, Connor.
despite us getting distracted there for well, completely off topic for the last few minutes,
Yeah.
I do believe that's all the time we have for today.
Oh no, I was. We were not going to talk more about Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter on this episode about one shots. No.
No, I think we covered some good stuff. I think we covered
We
like
definitely
what
did.
we kind of why we run one shots, what's expected of them, and some good like tips on how to plan them. I think it's important to have good timing, good planning, a solid beginning, middle, and end. There should be and if you can, doesn't have to, but if you can, throw a twist in there.
Yes.
Even if it's only a little one. But yeah, and then like try to include all aspects of the game that is D&D, where it's combat, social exploration, and then throw in a puzzle or a trap or two. That honestly, the sessions I've been running recently,
Recently.
what am I? Ross, what's it, Jonathan Ross? Um, he doesn't pronounce his R's.
Always.
Jonathan Was. But yeah, no, yeah, I've been running this kind of like method when I'm kind of coming up with them recently, and it's been working for me really, really well. So I would encourage anyone, if you're, and the great thing about one shots, I think as well, just to kind of put a kind of cherry on this, is that so many people on the internet are like, oh, we can't get together for our campaign this week, our weekly campaign and stuff like that. If you can't get people to come back consistently for 3 months while you run a campaign, run them through a campaign, or you have really tough time getting people together, come on, one shots. You can play them. They can play it episodically.
Yeah.
You know,
Do snapshots of the
um,
campaign.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, look at like Mandalorian as an
I
example.
was going to say Exandria Unlimited as well.
Exandria Unlimited, yeah, exactly. But I'm thinking more like look at like a television show where normally television shows tend to like be a continuation.
Yeah.
But if you look at something like The Mandalorian, where it's very clearly episodic, he's on a different adventure each episode. And there is an overarching plot, and that can be in there as well. But when he's on a different adventure every episode, that means that you could watch one episode of Mandalorian, and you don't have to watch another episode for 3 weeks. And when you come back in, you're not lost because you still know who the guy is. You still know that he has a kid and he needs to get him somewhere. But what's happening here and now in this episode is entirely isolated in this episode, and that could do. You could have the exact same methodology for running one shots in 5e. Doesn't matter if you miss a couple of weeks because we can't
Totally.
get together. But let's go back into another one shot that our characters are doing again. It's another adventure and it's a great laugh, you know.
Oh, actually,
And
one
we're-
final thing as
we
well. You can revisit old characters because I just remembered there's an entire playlist of Critical Role one shots, and a lot of them are related to the Vox Machina campaign.
Yeah, true, absolutely. Guys, if you have any questions you'd like us to ask, stories you'd like us to share, or topics you would like us to cover, please tweet us at MicFlayers Pod, see it on the lower screen. That's on Twitter. You can also find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Radio Republic, and Google Podcasts. I said out of order this time, but it still counts. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is in the bottom right hand corner of my screen, and also on the MicFlayers podcast Twitter account, which is at MicFlayersPod on Twitter, which is in the furthest right hand corner of the screen. Connor, what about you? Where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at 0.Connor, ZEROPOINTCONOR, 1N, very important. And as always, every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time here on the MicFlayers podcast on all the aforementioned platforms. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you had a good time. I hope we've left you with some tips on how to run one shots, or maybe just encourage you to get out there and plan a couple of one shots for your game group. And yeah, I hope you have fun playing D&D this week or next week or whenever you get to play next. We'll see you all next time, guys. Thank you very much for watching.
Bye, folks.